Good evening, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring classicist here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own life. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And tonight, Aristotle's going to show us the answer to a very interesting question. All of us have, at one point or another, had a friend or a relationship where at some point it was just clear that things were over. But Aristotle wants to know, when is that point? Where is it exactly? At what point do we actually need to break up with people? And that's not just romantic relationships. This is when do we break ties when any kind of relationship? So this is book 9, chapter 3 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. And let's begin. He starts by saying, another question is whether a friendship should or should not be broken off when the friends do not remain the same. It may be said that where the motive of the friendship is utility or pleasure, it is not unnatural that it should be broken off, when our friends no longer possess the attribute of being useful or agreeable. So if we are basing our relationships off of utility or pleasure, it's only natural for those relationships to end when they're no longer useful or pleasurable. Seems pretty straightforward. It was those attributes that we loved, and when they have failed, it is reasonable that love should cease. But a man might well complain if, though we really liked him for the profit or pleasure he afforded, we had pretended to love him for his character. So, there is grounds for complaint if we lie about our intentions in the relationship. The other party may not know that we saw the relationship as one of pleasure or one of utility, especially if we actively misled them. As was said at the outset, differences between friends most frequently arise when the nature of their friendship is not what they think it is. When therefore a man has made a mistake and has fancied that he was loved for his character, without there having been anything in his friend's behavior to warrant the assumption, he has only himself to blame. So if you didn't try to mislead him and he thought that the relationship was something other than it was, just of his own accord, then he can't really be mad at you. He only has himself to blame. But when he has been deceived by his friend's pretense, there is ground for complaint against the deceiver. In fact, he is a worse malefactor than those who counterfeit coinage, inasmuch as his offense touches something more precious than money, which is the heart. Again, supposing we have admitted a person to our friendship as a good man, and he becomes a bad man, or we think he has become a bad man, are we still bound to love him? Perhaps it is impossible to do so, since only what is good is lovable, and also wrong, for we ought not to be lovers of evil, nor let ourselves become like what is worthless. And as has been said above, like is the friend of like. Should we therefore break off the friendships at once? Perhaps not in every case, but only when our friends have become incurably bad. For so long as they are incapable of reform, we are even more bound to help them morally than we should be to assist them financially, since character is a more valuable thing than wealth and has more to do with friendship. So, if one of our friends was a good person when we met them, and suddenly they become a bad person, Aristotle says that we actually owe them an obligation to help them become good again. And not just help them financially. He's talking about helping them on a character basis. And I think right there is a pretty straightforward way to look at things. However, one could not be held to be doing anything unnatural if one broke off the friendship. For it was not a man of that sort that one loved. He has altered, and if one cannot restore him, one gives him up. So if we do try to fix him, and it's not our responsibility to fix him in the first place, that would just be something we were doing because we were good people. But if we do try and we fail to fix him or help him restore his good character, it's only natural for us to give up that relationship. In other words, set healthy boundaries. On the other hand, suppose one friend to have remained the same while the other has improved and become greatly superior in virtue. Ought the latter to keep up the friendship? Perhaps it is out of the question, and this becomes especially clear when the gap between them is a wide one, as may happen with two people who were friends in boyhood. So on the other hand, if your friend's a good person and you're a good person and you suddenly become a great person, it's also natural to give up that relationship, especially if the gap is wide, which may happen if you're friends with people since boyhood. So one may have remained a boy in mind, while the other is a man of highest ability. How can they be friends when they have different tastes and different likes and dislikes? They will no longer even enjoy each other's society, but without this intercourse, and therefore friendship, are impossible. Are we then to behave towards a former friend in exactly the same way, as if he had never been our friend at all? So should we just pretend like we never knew the guy in the first place? Perhaps we ought to remember our past intimacy, and just as we think it is right to show more kindness to friends than to strangers, so likewise some attention should be paid, for the sake of old times, to those who were our friends in the past. That is, if the rupture was not caused by extreme wickedness on their part. So if your friend didn't do anything wrong, even if you have grown apart just because of time, you should at least give him some respect in recognition of the times that you once had together. And that's the end of chapter 3. So now you guys know when to break up with friends. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.